Hello everyone, we are the Group 6 and we are going to tackle about managing decision making and problem solving. So let's get started with the nature of decision making. The first one, we have a decision making. It is the act of choosing one alternative from among a set of alternatives. This means that decision making is a process that can help you make more deliberate, thoughtful decisions by organizing relevant information. Also, decision making helps you in choosing between various options. Before making a decision, there is need to gather available information and to weigh its pros and cons. So the next one is the decision making process. There are 7 steps of decision making process. These are identify the decision, gather relevant information, identify the alternatives, weigh the evidence, choose among the alternatives, take action, and review decisions. These decision-making process steps helps you make more profitable decisions. You'll be able to better prevent a hasty decision-making and make more educated decisions. Decision-making process. Recognizing and defining the nature of a decision situation, identifying alternatives, and putting it into a practice. After we discuss the nature of decision making, let's go to the types of decisions. There are 2 types of decisions, the programmed decision and non-programmed decision. So let's get started with the programmed decision. A programmed decision, it is a decision that is very structured or recurs with some frequency. When we say programmed decision, these are repetitive and routine in nature. Involves those decisions that already have a plan or rule in place and is used to reach a situation or conclusion. So let's go to the non-programmed decision. It is a decision that is relatively unstructured and occurs much less often than a programmed decision. When we say non-programmed decision, it doesn't follow a set procedure and criteria for such decisions is not well defined. So I'm going to give an example of non-program organization. The first example is deciding whether to acquire another organization. The next one is deciding which global markets offer the most potential, or deciding whether to sell of an unprofitable division.
A view of decision-making conditions. The decision maker faces conditions of certainty, risk, and uncertainty. When we say certainty, the person in charge of making the decision knows for sure the consequence of each alternative, strategy, or course of action to be taken. In these circumstances, it is possible to foresee the facts and the results. The example of certainty include the need to meet the customer, contract, or regulatory requirements. The outcomes or consequences are known to you should you fail to comply. And when we say risk, the potential that a decision will lead to a loss or an undesirable outcome. In fact, any human decision carries some risk, but some decisions are much more risky than others. Example of risk is decrease in market share because new competitors or products enter the market. And when we say uncertainty, refers to situations under which either the outcomes and or their probabilities of occurrences are unknown to the decision maker. An example of uncertainty is when you feel as if you are not sure if you want to take a new job or not. Level of ambiguity and chances of making a bad decision. We have lower, moderate, and higher. When we say lower, tolerant culture concerned or made uncomfortable by uncertainty. People tend to become anxious when they are in unfamiliar situations or don't have at least rough plans. And when we say moderate, tolerance for ambiguity is the ability to deal with ambiguous situations in a sensible and calm way. It's context dependent, meaning that the same situation may be ambiguous in one setting and not in another. And when we say higher, a high ambiguity tolerant culture is not concerned by uncertainty. People from this culture tend to feel comfortable in situations in which they don't always know what is happening, and they do not avoid these situations. Decision making conditions, a state of certainty, a condition in which the decision maker knows with reasonable certainty what the alternatives are and what conditions are associated with each alternative. It says that certainty is the state of being definite or of having no doubts at all about something. A state of risk, a condition in which the availability of each alternative and its potential payoffs and costs are all associated with probability estimates. It says a state of uncertainty where some of the possibilities involve a loss, catastrophe, or other undesirable outcome. And the last one is a state of uncertainty. When we say a state of uncertainty, a condition in which the decision maker does not know all the alternatives, the risk associated with each, or the likely consequences of each alternative. And it says that uncertainty is a state of doubt about the future or about what is the right thing to do.
The classical model of decision making. So in the classical model of decision making, this is the rational strategy a manager should follow when making decisions in order to obtain or achieve a company set of goals. So as it says here, when faced with a decision situation, managers should obtain complete and perfect information, eliminate uncertainty, evaluate everything logically and rationally, and end up with a decision that best serves the interests of the organization. Rational perspectives on decision making. Classical model. A prescriptive approach to decision making that tells managers how they should make decisions. It assumes that managers are logical and rational and that they make decisions that are in the best interest of the organization. So, in this area, the classical model helps the manager in terms of decision making. It tells them what to do and how should they make decisions rationally and logically that serves best for the organization. Next are the steps in rational decision making. First step is the recognize and define situation. It may be positive or negative. Second is the identify alternatives. It must be generated. And third, evaluate alternatives to feasibility check. Fourth is when selecting alternative, the manager should choose best fit alternative. Fifth, the implementation of the chosen alternative. And last is the follow up and evaluate results if it does work.
Recognizing and defining decision situation. When defining decision, first is to identify your goal. This is one of the most effective decision-making strategies is to keep an eye on your goal. Identifying alternative. When we are identifying alternative, we assess various solutions to a problem and brainstorming might be used to discover alternative ways of achieving one of the project objectives. Evaluating alternative. This may be one-step or multi-step process. Depending on the complexity of alternatives and decision, we gather information to make a final choice between our decision. selecting the best alternative. Selecting one from the various alternatives is called decision making. When trying to make good decision, a person must weigh the positive and negatives of each option and consider all the best possibilities of alternatives. Implementing the chosen alternative. Managers put a chosen alternative into action, convey the decision, those affected, and get their commitment to it. Following up and evaluating the result. Evaluation provides a systematic method to study program, practice, intervention, or initiative to understand how well it achieved its goals. Evaluation helps determine what works well and what could we improve. Identifying alternatives. These are the process of analyzing and evaluating alternatives applies evaluation criteria to alternatives or options in a way that facilitates decision making. After identifying, you will evaluate all of the alternatives you gathered. In this step, you need to list all possible and desirable alternatives. Alternative means an alternative that is available and reasonably capable of being carried out after taking into consideration. If something is feasible, it means that we can do it, make it, or achieve it. In other words, it is doable and viable. If it's not feasible, then eliminate from consideration. If yes, then proceed to the alternative satisfactory. If it makes you satisfied, then proceed to the alternative consequences. If the alternative consequences is not affordable, then eliminate from consideration. If yes, then retain for further consideration.
Behavioral aspects of decision making. The administrative model. A decision making model showing that managers, number 1, have incomplete and imperfect information. Sometimes managers don't have enough information and they still rely on other members of an organization. Number 2, are constrained by bounded rationality. Instead of the manager chooses the best decisions, they choose the possible alternatives they have. Number 3, tend to satisfy when making decisions. They often accept the available options they have when making decisions. The administrative model of decision making. When managers face decision situation, they actually use incomplete and imperfect information, resulting of they are forced to or controlled by bounded rationality or choose what's the available and accept that option and end up with a decision that may or may not serve the interests of an organization.
Bounded rationality. A concept suggesting that decision makers are limited by their values and unconscious. Bounded rationality is a human decision-making process in which we attempt to satisfy rather than optimize. Bounded rationality thinking is limited by the available information, the tractability of the decision problem, the cognitive limitation of our minds, and the time available to make the decision. This type of thinking is called satisficing, or doing the best you can with what you have. Example of bounded rationality: when ordering at a restaurant, customer will make suboptimal decision because they feel rushed by the waiter. Next, satisficing. Satisficing, the tendency to search for alternatives only until one is found that meets some minimum standard of sufficiency. Satisficing, this can be referred to as a phenomenon strategy that strives for satisfactory decision making. It is aimed at taking decisions that are okay enough to tackle a situation but not the best possible decision. Example of satisficing. Customer often select a product that is not good enough rather than perfect.
Political force and decision making. Cohesion. An informal alliance of groups formed to achieve a common goal. So, what is political forces? Here in political forces is to have a decision to make a common goal or to have a one goal that we need. So, how will we obtain the goal? So, we need a participation of each other or to have a unity to grow what we want to our business. Intuition and escalation of commitment. So, intuition. an innate belief about something without conscious consideration. So here in intuition. Here intuition is when you know what the possibility of what will happen to your decision. So escalation of commitment. A decision maker is staying with a decision even though it appears to be wrong. So what is escalation of commitment? When you know that your decision is wrong and you stay it in the same way. Risk propensity decision making. Risk propensity. The extent to which a decision maker is willing to gamble when making a decision. So what is risk propensity? So here in risk propensity is to have a decision that you don't know if it will be successful or not. That you don't know if your decision will decrease your business or increasing it.
Group and team decision making in organizations. Forms of group and team decision making. First is interacting group or team, a decision making group or team in which members openly discuss, argue about, and agree on the best alternative. It is an interacting group technique is the widely used method of having team members have an unstructured discussion of the problem. Participants propose solutions. The group actively debates what the best course of action is. Second is the Delphi group, a form of group decision-making in which a group solicits input from a panel of experts who contribute individually. Their opinions are combined and in effect average. Delphi allows for decision-making when team members are not physically in the same location. The process used by Van de Ven and Delphi began by issuing questionnaires by mail to participants who did not know the identity of any of the other participants. Once the questionnaires were returned, the ideas generated were recorded and sent out in second questionnaires that delve more in depth into the ideas. Respondents voted on different solutions and returned the questionnaires. It is also a great way to gain expert opinions on important organizational decisions. This technique helps experts arrive at a group decision that might solve complex problems or implement big picture decisions. And the last one is the nominal groups. Unlike the Delphi method, where group members do not see one another, this group is brought together, a structured technique used most often to generate creativity, innovative alternatives, and ideas. Nominal groups follows a process of first allowing members to silently and on their own generate a list of ideas and thoughts on how to answer the proposed problem. Then, all of the members list their proposed solutions to the rest of the team. All the responses are recorded and written out for the entire team to read. Once all of the proposed solutions have been recorded, the team discusses each solution for its validity and to clarify what is meant by each solution. Finally, the group independently votes on the solutions and the group's decision is derived from the outcome of the vote.
Advantages and disadvantages of group and team decision making. Advantages: more information and knowledge available. In addition, factual knowledge enhances cognitive processes like problem solving and reasoning. The richer the knowledge base, the more smoothly and effectively these cognitive processes, the very ones but teachers' targets operate. So the more knowledge students accumulate, the smarter they become. More alternatives generated. The wider the option you explore, the better your final decision is likely to be. Generating a number of different options may seem to make your decisions more complicated at first, but the act of coming up with the alternative forces you to dig deeper and to look at the problem from different angles.
More acceptance. Acceptance dependent on participant and involvement is emotional. Effective decisions are the product of decision quality and its acceptance by those who must work with the decision. Enhance communication. By delivering messages clearly, there is no room for misunderstanding or alteration of messages, which decrease the potential for conflict. In situations where conflict does arise, effective communication is a key factor to ensure that the situation is resolved in a respectful manner. Better discussions. It can help foster a collaborative work environment and create clarity of communication among various stakeholders. By adopting group decision-making processes, it is possible to make different team members understand each other's perspective, strengths, and weaknesses. Disadvantages: the process takes longer. Missed opportunities: the first danger of slow decision making is that it may lead to missed opportunities by the time the firm. Compromise decisions result from indecisiveness. Indecisiveness is an individual difference measure of chronic difficulty and delay in decision making. Indecisiveness is associated with low decisional confidence and distinct patterns of pre-choice information search behavior. One person may dominate, but when one person dominates conversation and meetings in a workplace, it often stifles engagement from other colleagues. It can make the office feels like an unsafe place to contribute, offer constructive criticism, and bring a diverse set of opinions, while ultimately harms morale. Groupthink may occur. The impact of groupthink includes the following: lack of creativity. Overconfidence in groupthink negatively impact the profitability of an organization. Optimal solutions to problems may be overlooked, lack of feedback on decisions, and hence poor decision making. Groupthink, a situation that occurs when a group or team's desire for consensus and cohesiveness overwhelms the goal of reaching the best possible decisions. Groupthink is a phenomenon that occurs when the desire for group consensus overrides people's common sense desire to present alternatives, critique a position, or explore an unpopular opinion. Here, the desire for group cohesive effectively drives out good decision making and problem solving.